Coach Helen for YouFit Studio, talking about stories that need changing. I'm going to come back to this one in a couple of weeks' time from a different angle. This angle today is the one I'm about to do. So this angle today, I'm going to look at what it is, what I'm referring to, why it's important, as always, what, why, how to change it, and what happens when it comes to the decision of changing it or not changing it, and what are the deciding factors of someone changing a story. Now, if I get specific with it, let me take a little sip. Wait a minute. There we go. Seamless. You notice this at the beginning of the live may contain product placement. And there it is. For you listening, it's YouFit Studio. .co.uk. However, okay, stories. So stories stories are the reason why we choose to do things in life or make a particular pathway in life. And the angle I'm going at today is the long-term stories that we adhere to that come from a belief system. Now, a different way of using that word terminology that I like to think about is almost like a roadmap. So, how many of you watching thought this? Because I did. The roadmap of life. Okay, here was my roadmap of life. Try not to laugh too much. I mean, it's changed. The roadmap did change in different directions, let's be honest. Fundamentally stayed the same though. So my roadmap growing up would be, I'm laughing now, like going, wow, what was nowhere near the actual roadmap has occurred. Young, okay, but I was playing with tiny tears. Get married, have a kid, not work. My mum didn't work, she was a professional housewife. Terminology for it didn't work. So my roadmap for life expectations were get married, have a baby, stay at home, go shopping a lot for food, not anything else, just food. Hi Jess. Yeah, and that's about it. And then when I got older, my roadmap was go to college, go to university, get a job at graduate level, work my way to the bone for probably about 10 to 15 years, maybe get married, might have to make a decision between career and marriage at some point, obviously have both, because that's an expectation, have 2 or 3 kids, retire, become a housewife. So actually, it fundamentally came back to the same place as a roadmap now. And that's also a belief system as well, right? So it's instilled as a belief or a roadmap. Equally, for guys, it's like get a good job, go to college, go to university, get a good job, make a lot of money, provide, have a family, big car, big TV. Roadmap done. Okay. So whether you call it a story or as I like to look at it as like a roadmap, it was always like I've heard it called a blueprint before as well, right? So it's like a blueprint or roadmap for life. Like this is the route you are taking. It's not like an open map where it's like, oh, we're going in a direction. It's a roadmap, as in you are following this route, and this is it, right? You're heading in that direction. Do not deviate. And what's interesting is identifying if you have one now. So if you have a roadmap now, what is it? Like if you think of the example I've just used, what is it you have right now? If it's career or relationship or friendships, right? So career is obviously like, oh, I should gets used a lot when it comes to roadmaps. This is where I should be in my career path at this point, and I am, or I'm not. This is where I should be in my relationships, or I'm not. This is where I should be in starting a family, or I'm not. All right. See where I'm going with this, right? So everyone has a roadmap that either they understand or they don't. They're conscious of or they're not, right? But it actually influences how we make decisions or behaviours or how we approach certain situations. So Helen's saying times have definitely changed, roadmaps are always changing. Yes, aha! Oh, but wait, Emma, I'm going to get there. Mrs. I'm going to get there. Helen's my point and I'll come back to it. Yes. So the thing is that when, and you could all do this as an exercise actually, I've done this with clients before. If you think one element of your life, right, and say, this is what I'm happy with, right? So this is something I am happy with in my life. Like I'll say, right, let's just use an example, I don't know, career. Let's just use that one. I'm happy where I am in my career, all right? That will most likely mean that you're actually in the position you believe you were meant to be on your roadmap, right? So actually it falls in line with it. Like, this is where I was meant to be, this is where I should be, and this is where I am. I'm happy with that, all right? And then if you know where you're happy with things, then it's a question of, well, okay, where am I not happy? Where is it that I'm on my roadmap or my plan that I'm not happy? Where are the things that are meant to have happened or should have happened? I should have been married by now, for example. That's what I hear a lot, especially with female clients. I was meant to be married by now and I had 2 kids. According to what? The roadmap, right? So if someone's not happy with something, certainly with think about health and fitness, with weight loss, I was meant to be a size by now. Oh, by whose roadmap though? That's what's interesting, right? So by whose roadmap? Now, if you have any element of your life, this will apply to any element of your life. So any element where you're happy or unhappy will be because you're either in line with your roadmap or you're not. Okay? So, this is interesting, right? Because I've written these down, this is true. So when somebody's not happy, so if you think of an element where someone's not happy with their roadmap, which is sometimes can be health and fitness or situationally based, right? There's three responses somebody can have to that understanding, right? So that means, say you're at a particular point where, I don't know, let's say you were, let's use lockdown. Love that. So I heard this a lot. I should have done more by now. I saw myself being able to use a stone in lockdown and I haven't. I should have done that by now. There's 3 things that people will go to, right? They'll blame. Blame. That's a response. So blame will be environment, situation, person, I couldn't do it, time, money, blame, right? And this goes for any situation where somebody's situation is in line with their roadmap or blueprint or journey, whatever we call it, or story, right? So it's not in line with someone's roadmap, so they'll attribute blame externally to say, I couldn't do this because, and even blame the coach, like it happens, Sam's talked about it as well. They'll say, well, it's your fault. You didn't tell me what protein to have with a meal on a Wednesday afternoon. Like, well, it's an actual thing. Blame gets attributed externally because it's an actual response to something not falling in line with an expectation. The other response to have, right? So there's 2 other responses. You can either change, right, the environment. So change the environment, or thirdly, change the roadmap. Oh, Helen, look ahead. So Helen was right. So you see the roadmaps are changing. Yes, because you can change your roadmap, right? Consciously, right? No, most people will go for option 2 and 3, by the way. So it'll be a combination of the 2. So either they change their environment or change their roadmap, or a combination, a blend of the 2, right? Usually, right? What happens though if they literally can't change some basic environmental situations or physical situations? Well, it only leaves a roadmap to get changed. How then? Ooh, how? It's understanding actually where it comes from, more often than not. Where does that limiting belief or limiting roadmap to some degree come from? Where's the source of it? 9.9 times out of 10, it's not, and I've talked about this a little bit before, it's not the reality, actually. The first step is actually understanding that this roadmap exists in your head. This is what I'm going to come back to in a couple of weeks, because this is the first stage of it, and it's actually an interesting activity to do with a client, or an interesting activity to do by yourself either way, because it asks you to actually start to understand where it comes from. Like Kate, for example, had a roadmap before, I'm sure, in terms of career paths. So did Hemmer as well. Like, this is where I'm expected to be. This is where I'm meant to be on my journey. This is where I actually am. And either I'm satisfied that I'm making progress. Yeah, I talked about that as well. I'm satisfied and happy I'm making progress on my roadmap, or I'm not. But if you can't change a situation, as in I can't physically change whether or not I'm in lockdown, for example, and I can't physically change my environment, then what I do need to do is change the roadmap, or change my expectations of that roadmap, certainly. Because otherwise someone is always going to be caught in that situation of I'm not somehow hitting some roadmap that I set when I was 5 or 11 years of age. I am still not got 3 kids. I'm okay with that. I think I wanted 2, a boy and a girl, obviously. That was a roadmap. Imagine if I'd stuck on that roadmap. I'd be, I can't even. I'd be bat crazy by now. If I'd stuck to my roadmap, well, a lot of you have changed your roadmap by joining UFit in the first place, right? And I'll talk about what that is in the second live in a couple of weeks' time. The thing is that actually, the main thing I said before is understanding where your roadmap comes from and what elements of it you want to change. And understand, accept where you actually are and where you want to be. Because those two things are very different as well, not necessarily the same. So when I say need changing, because this is the name of it, when I labelled it stories that need changing, it's often the case. The roadmap needs to be changed for somebody to make long-term progress, because guess what, like the one I set out for myself, I ain't never going to get that. So was it ever going to lead to? I don't want that either. And that's also to explore as well. The roadmap's usually set out by our belief system. Our belief system will come from, like mine, these as an example, or the true, will come from some kind of social expectation. I'm expected to be here because that is where everybody else is. Is that what you want though? Is this the roadmap that you want, or is it a roadmap that you assume people want for you, or you assume you want for yourself? Because that's what your belief system is. Because actually, is that roadmap going to give you happiness long term or not, if you're never really going to achieve it, if it's not something you don't really want? Same as it comes to, if I relay it back to health and fitness, or losing weight even, or whatever your goal happens to be. The reality is that if the roadmap's been set out to you by someone else, as in, I should have lost, you should have lost, and this is the word that comes out on this roadmap or belief system so much. And if you hear yourself saying it, or think it about something where you've not achieved what you expected, know that, well, first listen to my live about language, because it's all over that. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, as it is one I did as well. Right? Things you don't, yes, you change your language, yes, that's a huge one, you change your language. Also change the way in which you use it, change the way in which you set out your own path. The journey is not, can be changed at any point, like I was saying, you can change your journey at any point, you just choose to change it though. Rather than stick telling yourself off for something that you didn't even necessarily set out to give you happiness anyway, as you accept it. I should be on X amount of... I love that one with career. I should be on X amount of money by now. Really? Who set that one out? Like, don't like my job, I'm not paid enough. Okay, well, how does that set? Well, I should be paid. Who's dictating that journey? I should have a bigger car by now. I should be able to afford a bigger house. Ooh, all that chasing stuff for happiness. I think I covered that, didn't I, last week? And again, you see how it all ties in though. I should have been at a certain point in my journey. At this point, I should have achieved something that would make me happy. You know what I think about that? Nope. You create happiness now with your emotion, right? But while you're on a story in your head, or a journey, or a roadmap, that's been predictated that you'll only be happy at certain stages when you've achieved certain pit stops along that route, along that roadmap, then ultimately you're always setting yourself up for disappointment, or this Should. Should happen by now. I'll be happy by now if. Ooh. I did tell you, all these lives tie into each other when you start to get into it. They actually do. Which is why I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, that's why I'm doing these as a split, because it takes time to understand what your own roadmap is. What have you set out for yourself? It's, as I said earlier, and I will recap anyway, but actually to sit and write down and say, these are things I'm actually happy with. These are things that I actually don't want to focus on, or don't think I need, or feel to, right? Think or feel. These will be elements of your life that sit nicely with your roadmap. Yeah, I've achieved that. That hit the mark. That hit the checkpoint, right? And then write out the things that don't, and really get into them. Where has that come from? That roadmap dictated that that's how it's meant to be. Because you can choose to change it. Recap. Alright. Yeah, it's recap time. So why do they need to be changed? Actually, we could go into that again. So what are they and why? The roadmap, as I said, is always going to be something that sets yourself up for disappointment if you've not hit some predetermined set of life journey moments. Right? I went through what mine was. Recap it again. I'm not. Every time I go to think about it, I'm slightly laughing inside, like, wow. Did not hit that roadmap. It's okay. Actually, in every element I think of my life, I did not hit any of the roadmaps I thought I had set out for myself. That's alright though. I have changed them. I think the most interesting thing is like I am now, I don't have a roadmap or a set of expectations where I'm meant to be. I'm just like, I am on this. I am on this journey wherever it goes. I'm just like this, hanging on. Have goals and everything, yeah. Goals and let's get that clear, by the way. Goals and roadmaps are two different things. Roadmaps are pre-ordered at a very young age and set out through quite a lot of life, actually. Even though I used lockdown as an example with weight loss, actually, the actual roadmaps are predetermined a lot earlier in life. They're predetermined as this is markers where you're meant to be at a certain age. You should be here by now. So yeah, the roadmaps are shoulda, coulda, wouldas. They shoulda, coulda, woulda ourselves all day when we haven't got them. Again, it talks about what are you happy with. I think it's most likely it sits with your roadmap if you're happy with it. If you're not, if there's something there you're not happy with, guess what? Somehow it's disjointed with your belief system of where you're meant to be in life, or where you're meant to be in your journey in terms of health. And that's, again, it's about understanding where that's come from, that pre-designed route or blueprint or roadmap. Also appreciating and deciding what response you're going to have if it's not there. One, blame. Not my fault. It was the weather. It was time. It was money. It was my coach. It was my children. It was this lockdown, shake fist. Blame, attributing blame. Or two, choose to change your environment. Choose to change situation with time. Choose to change situation with finance. Choose to change situation with children, significant other, work, etc. Choose to change your environment. Or choose to change your roadmap. So choose to change the predetermined, I should have done this by now. Really? Or is it acceptance that you can change the roadmap at any point, if you so choose to? Right? As I said, the answer is probably a blend of 2 and 3 in different circumstances throughout life. Like, take the last few months where you literally can't change your environment, so what can you change? You can change the roadmap, you change the internal story. This is how things are meant to be. This is it, this is the roadmap. This is how my life's meant to be. No. You change the roadmap, you change it because you can. It's a conscious choice. Or you accept it and blame. Yeah. It's a true thing, it happens. Yeah. So that's me on changing stories. As I say, if you are a member, you lucky devils that you are, you get access to one of us. So you can talk about your roadmap, where you're expectations of life are meant to be by now. Talk about why you're not happy that you're not at a particular point, because it's important to do this, because all this impacts health and fitness, because it actually impacts how you see yourself and expectations and pressure you put on yourselves to achieve things like losing weight or gaining muscle or gaining weight, whatever your goal is. All those predetermined stories will still influence you and how you view yourself and how you view yourself throughout this whole experience. It does strongly influence people in ways they don't really foresee when they sit down and say, I want to be a size 10. I talked about that as well, right? But the internal roadmap you give yourself will actually also predetermine how comfortable, successful you feel. If you feel you are doing well, right? Again, this is the thing. We do this with everything in life. We pre-program how things are meant to go. And then shoulda, coulda, woulda ourselves when we don't hit this roadmap along the way, like I should have lost a stone by now, or I should have trained more, or I should have done this, or should have done that. Why? Because you've predetermined this is how it's meant to be. But the reality is different, right? We talked about that. The truth. What's the truth? Like yesterday, tying about 6 different lives into all of this, because there's a running theme through it. And not by accident, by the way. So have a lovely evening. The sun's out. I'm going to work on my tan. Helen has tan work to do. So have a lovely evening, and tomorrow I will be back again at 5, and I'm looking forward to it. So, laters.